This is where things really start to get exciting. So far, we've built the foundation and we've discussed who all the players of the industry are, all the phases of the industry. We broke down a basic insurance adjuster estimate. We talked about building codes and all the different versions and how building codes can help us to equalize the playing field so that we can, since we're not allowed to talk about policy or coverage, now we can equalize the playing field. We talked about what the role of a contractor is and how to stay in that lane, but yet how you can still win. And so now we've built sort of a proper foundation. We now move on to the stage of the damage inspection. And where we're going to go from here, we've set the proper rules. We know where the address of the job is. And so we've gone to the city and we've done a search to determine which version of the IRC or IBC, depending on if it's residential IRC or if it's commercial IBC, which version of that code it is, and that they've adopted, and if there are any amendments or changes to that code. So now we know what the rules are for this particular assignment, for this particular job, and now we're getting ready to go inspect it. But before we ever go out there, we want to first start by investigating all of the available data that we have at our fingertips before ever even going out there. And then from there, we want to make sure that we're prepared and we have the right tools before we ever go out there. So we want to make sure we're equipped and we have everything we need and accessible to us before we go out. So I want you to follow a checklist, if you will, and I want you to check off these 10 or so items before you go out to every deal. Starting with, obviously you're probably already doing a number of things. You're probably, and if you're not, you should be obviously getting the client's contact info. And I would make sure I would get the building owner's info if at all possible, and not just like, on business deals, not like just the person that's answers phones, like you want to get the actual building. You can get this information yourself, usually by going to the county appraiser or tax assessor, whatever it's called in your area, that website. Most counties have that available where you could search tax records and such to find out who the actual building owner is. But you should be getting that information before you go. You should be getting all contact info of the building owner, such as a phone number, how to get in touch with them, or whoever's running that operation for them, whoever's handling those affairs. You should be getting an email contact, the address of the property. So from the address of the property, you should be able to find out where that property is located, like which city it is. And you should be able to get that info between the city data, city websites, county websites, etc. Should be able to get that info. It's all public info, so you should be able to get that somewhat easily. But then there's some other things that I want to know, and I want to go through those now. The first is, what is the state of damage? I'm assuming you're probably asking that, but they probably called and said, I need somebody to come and look at my roof. But if it's a hail damage or hurricane damage, that's usually what they want somebody to come and look at, is the roof. But I also want you to ask other questions like sir, what other items were damaged at your house that you noticed? Are there water leaks coming in through the inside? Did you notice anything? Was the fence messed up? Was the shed, or did you notice anything blowing off of the roof? Is anything unsafe? Does anything need accomplished? Any windows busted open? Anything needed boarded up right away? Just try to get as much details about the damage as you possibly can over the telephone or over email, if that's the contact that you have, text, whatever it is. But also, these are a couple even more important items that I want to get to, and that is, has the insurance company been notified? It seems elementary, but a lot of times people are unsure about that process. And I think all too often, somebody calls up a roofer on a cell, they're referred, or calls up through some Google number or something, and it routes to their cell. and the guy answers the phone, and it's like, yeah, I need somebody to come out, take a look at my roof, or repair my roof, or give me an estimate for a new roof, or whatnot. And the response is usually, okay, what's your address, what's your name, what's your number, I could be out at this time, and that's that. Like, I don't think a lot of effort goes into pre-qualifying that customer and finding out as much information as you possibly can. I mean, if this were a sales type training, then one of the things I'd be saying is, at this stage here, is I need to know, from this standpoint, I don't know if this is a sales situation. So I don't know if I'm giving training to a person that's going to be handling the estimates and inspections and supplements for the company, or if it's you that's going to be doing that, or if this is somebody that is taking this training because they'd like to set out on a new career as a consultant, doing inspections, estimates, or supplements. So I'm not here to give training on the sales, but if I were, then at this stage of the process, like if this is a salesperson that's also handling the inspections, estimates, and supplements, then I would say that sales rep needs to be asking these questions from a sales point of view, from a sales standpoint, and also pre-qualifying the customer to make sure that they're even a good prospect. So in other words, like, I would want to make sure that the client knows that how we work as the contractor. So like, that we, ma'am, sir, our role really is that we perform all the repairs as an insurance restoration contractor. We perform all the repairs that have been prescribed by the insurance claim. And so, and a lot of times that prescription, calls for removing and replacing shingles, but by mistake or whatever the reason is, they leave out a lot of the other items necessary to carry out that prescription. And that's usually okay because we have a process for that, and that is we take extensive documentation and photos, and we use the same software, and we deal with building codes, and we put it all together, and we give a nice package for the insurance company so that they can see something more diligent and thorough. And so if anything is missing, then we usually do a pretty good job of presenting those items to the insurance companies so that they can, examine the items that they missed. So, and we work with all of those insurance companies in that capacity. So we're constantly coming, in contact with all the insurance companies, and we try to keep up to speed and up to date on how they operate and what their processes are like. And so I would spend time on the phone sort of maybe educating the client with how that works, maybe what Xactimate is, and let them know that you called me to give you a price, but I can give you a price now on the telephone really before I come out there or even put my hand on my tape measure, and that price is the total replacement cost value, the total RCV, the total approved amount that the insurance company approves for the replacement cost value. So little segue there, but I thought it might be valuable. Might as well go ahead and drop that nugget if hopefully it helps someone out there. But so I would spend some time to ask these questions to pre-qualify the customer from a sales standpoint, because I wouldn't want to go anywhere to do an inspection or a sales presentation to anybody that's not a qualified prospect. But from an estimating standpoint, I want to be prepared, and I also want to know, what I need with me, and I want to have all of the available history and background on this claim, on this project, as I possibly can. So that's my purpose of asking these questions here. So has the insurance company been notified? And has the insurance company sent someone out to inspect the damages? So that's crucial, right? I want to know that. Because I'm asking the question, but the answer really reveals a lot more than just the answer to that question. So, I mean, has the insurance company been notified? That also tells me that the claim was filed, right? If they've been notified, the claim was more than likely filed if they've been officially notified. So has the insurance company sent someone out to inspect the damages? So I can find a lot out from that information too. And I will ask who. Was it an insurance adjuster that came out? Or, was it an engineer? Was it a building consultant? Was it somebody that just came out the ladder? Was it another contractor, right? I mean, you could find out a lot from that information. Now, let me ask you this. when the adjuster came out, do you have a contact info? Like, did someone send them out? Do you have contact with the inside adjuster at the insurance company also? Yeah, I do. Her name is such and such, and she, I talked to her also. So you can get a lot of information there too. So from that, well, there's an outside adjuster. You might even find out who that is or what company they work for, and that might tell you a lot because you might have experience working with some of those outside adjusters with that company. But it's an outside independent adjuster who's out there in the field, but the customer talked to someone else in the inside with the insurance company. So that tells me, okay, there's an inside desk adjuster and an outside field adjuster has been dispatched and reports back to the inside desk adjuster. So I'm starting to learn a little bit now. I'm learning that that's the person I want to make the contact with when I do get around to submitting an estimate, if we get that far in, is the inside adjuster and not the field adjuster. Like, I might learn from that depending on, like, when was the insurance company notified and when did that person come out. So if they tell me that it's been 3-4 weeks since the State Farm adjuster came out, but yet they talked to someone else, or maybe like Farmers or Allstate, that probably tells me that person on the front end, the first adjuster that came out in the field, is probably off that claim. They're probably long gone. Right? They're probably in another town somewhere. So it'd be pointless to ever try to call that person, to talk about the estimate or really anything else. Like, I would actually suggest that you, and we get into this a little more in the later segments, I would suggest that you just intentionally let them get off the claim. Because that field adjuster doesn't have near the authority as the inside desk adjuster, generally speaking, most of the time. So I would just let them, let it play out 10 to 14 days. Let them get their check, okay? Like, they don't want to be annoyed by supplements. All they care about is really their circumstances, like we probably would if we were that person. I'm sure most of them care about the policy holders. I know a lot of you beg to differ, but I believe they do. I believe most of them actually care about the people, but they all have lives and careers and families and livelihood too. And they've learned, like we got into in previous subjects, they've learned that the real game is speed, is to get it closed out quickly so that they can get their money. So I would just get that field adjuster, since they're really just, no offense to them, but a pawn in the grand scheme of things. I would let them get off the claim, and so that I could deal with the inside. So again, back to the questions. I can learn a lot from asking those questions. And then, if there's how many different adjusters have been out? Was it just one? And if there was more than one, I want to find out why. Did you contact, were they missing something the first time or something? Okay. And then I also want to know, have you had any other contractors out yet? I want to know that too, because maybe a guy knocked on the door and they filed the claim, and that first adjuster came out and that first contractor came out and met the adjuster, and we now have to maybe undo some things. Maybe an estimate was presented. So we need to learn about those things. And sometimes people don't want to give up all the information. So the more and more they get to know you and they're comfortable with you, hopefully they do. If you ask the right questions, I think that can go a long way towards establishing yourself as the expert and make them more comfortable with going ahead and telling you the real story. You can't really help them unless they give you the real information. But okay, so now we know the insurance company, did they send somebody out to inspect the damages? And then, by the way, what did they say? So when the insurance company came out, what did they say? So that question also can lead to some to much more revealing answers. So what did they say? Yeah, they said that I needed a new roof. They said that I needed a new roof, and they said they were going to pay for a roof and fences or whatever. Or that just by them saying I need a new roof, that basically tells me that it's been approved. The roof has been approved, at least the roof. That's good. That's a good start. I mean, maybe they're missing a whole bunch of other things, but it'd be much more of an uphill climb, as many of you already know, if they denied the roof or if they only approved half of it. It's harder to get the interior damages approved if they've denied the roof. So that's usually the biggest, most important things in like a hail or windstorm. And if we're talking about fire and water, we're talking about a much different thing, and it's a lot easier. If it's fire and water, it's a much more simple thing to get coverage applied. You know, it's not, they don't usually come out and say, well, we're going to deny this. It doesn't look like fire damage to us. That doesn't usually happen. Water damage is similar. It might be some things about, you know, where the water came from and some other policy related issues, but on the contractor level, it sometimes can be a little easier. But with the roof, we want to know, you know, what did they say? If they said it needs and same thing with the fire, same thing with the water. What did the insurance company say? That could tell us a lot about, you know, everything. And if it's water or fire, you know, has it already been remediated? So have you had anybody out to tear out the wet stuff and get rid of the water? Has that been accomplished? Have you had the plumber out, you know, to shut down the water? I'm assuming that's been taken care of, right? Or is this in the moment? Is this right now happening? Fire, you know, has the fire department freed up the scene so that people can get in and look at it? Has the fire marshal completed their arson investigation, you know, or if there is one? Have they completed their report? All right, so is it safe, you know, to get in there? What condition is it in now? Has the adjuster been able to get into the scene to inspect? Those are some more of the questions you would ask for some of those types of claims. Now, but again, what did the insurance company say? If they said, yeah, I need a new roof, or yeah, I need this, or yeah, I need that, you know, they're telling me, I'm also hearing they applied coverage. Pretty much, right? I mean, technically, you know, if the field adjuster said that, yeah, I know it has to go through, you know, to their superiors at the independent adjusting firm, and has to get approval before it's submitted to the carrier, if there is an independent firm involved, and then the carrier has to accept it and approve it. But most of the time, that takes place. Those things, you know, if they apply coverage out there, especially in the fog of war after a storm, there's a check that's going to go out. Maybe there's some things not approved that he wanted approved, but a check's going to go out. So if I ask the question, what the insurance company said, yeah, they said I need a new roof, that tells me they've got coverage, and also it tells me they probably have an estimate in their possession, and they probably have a check in their possession. So see, a lot can be gained from that. I mean, what would you rather do? Would you rather go to an inspection and sign somebody up that already has a check in hand and an estimate and applied coverage, or one that you have to go meet with the adjuster, get the coverage applied, wait a week or so for the check to come and all those things to happen? I mean, in a lot of ways that is better because you get out in the front end and make sure things are done right, a little more right the first time with the adjuster, but it sure is easier to get the money flowing, and you could start getting some of the build going and some of the things prepped. And so, you know, it takes so long to get the money flowing sometimes, and if there's a bank involved, etc., then it's always nice to get the money going as quickly as possible. That's always my philosophy, is like, get the money off the table as soon as you possibly can, because of the delay that you're always going to have to put up with throughout the process at other stages. So, all right, so now who's the insurance company? Now, sometimes you might be getting this lead that's coming through to you like from a referral. I've had plenty of times where I just get an email out of the blue and it's an insurance estimate attached, like from a referral. They already have that confidence. I've always kind of made it a policy personally of mine to never ask the client for their insurance, for a copy of their insurance estimate. I know that some people are the exact same opposite, maybe most, where they're like, I'm not going to do anything until I get a copy of that insurance estimate, because then that shows that they're serious, and then I can tell a lot from that estimate, which we've learned in previous segments. But make no mistake about it, I want a copy of it, but I don't want to ask them for it. So I almost want them to want to give it to me, and to where I'm almost resisting it, you know, to where they're almost like begging me to take it out of their hands, you know. And there's a way to do that, which we'll get into more into the inspection part of it. But in this part too, you know, if you ask a lot of questions the right way and you're pre-qualifying it, a lot of times on that phone call, in that conversation, or because they were referred through the right situation, they'll know already that you're the right person for the project, and no one else has been this thorough with them just on the phone, and maybe you're providing some free advice. You know, typically how it should work is maybe building codes. Maybe you could get into that and describe for them what things are required by law, and how most of the contractors out there, like the other contractors you talk to, did anybody bring up the codes? Asking the right question can establish yourself as the expert. And if you do that, then they'll want you to have the estimate so that you can interpret it for them, so that you can make some sense of it for them. Because I guarantee you most of the time it doesn't make much sense to them. I mean, a lot of the stuff is there, but it's real fuzzy and hazy around the edge. I think most of you'd agree with me. In your experience, you've probably seen that quite a bit. So if they are going to send you the estimate, then that would be another thing that you're going to investigate. That would obviously open up a lot of these details. But without it, I still think you can learn a whole heck of a lot without actually having the estimate. If they're wanting to feed it to you and you've never asked for it, then you're winning already. Like, you're doing a good job of your pre-qualification, you're educating the client, you're providing value right up front. And I always like to say, whether you hire me or not, this is what I'm going to do. Don't take my word for it. Ask your agent. Ask other source. Ask the adjuster, so that you don't have to just take some stranger's word for it, right? Okay. So the other thing that I would do is analyze the available weather data. So you've asked what happened, when it happened. I'm assuming you've by now got a pretty good picture of what occurred, like what the cause of loss is. So if it's a fire or water, then you can skip this step. But if it's a weather claim, which is so predominant these days, hail and hurricane, wind, other weather-related claims, maybe lightning even, that's more rare, but I've seen tons of them. The thing you would want to do is investigate the available weather data that's available. So Hail Trace, for example. You can order in companies like Hail Trace that you may already have relationships with. You can order the weather data for that particular address over a certain period of time. So if you wanted to take it that far, you could prepare yourself that far. You could find out what kind of wind speeds were in the area and when, what size hail and when was there, so that you have a pretty good, you can even find what direction it was coming for. So you know what side of the house to look on, or the building to look on. So there's a lot to be gained before you ever even leave your office to go out there. So, and then another one would be, this is a killer. I mean, my goodness, it's 2018 when I'm making this video right here, and this technology that I'm going to talk about has already been available for years. And that's the Google Street View and Google Earth Pro. They have Google Earth, but Google Earth Pro is an extra little plug-in download that you can get on your phone or your desktop, tablet. I mean, these little apps, they're huge, are absolutely amazing. And I've been using them for several years, being in virtual estimating, and I'm just fascinated by the leaps and bounds of how clear that I could just look up an address and zoom and kind of do a virtual drive down the street and look around and look at the neighbors and look at this side of the house and that side of the house, and depending on where it is, I might be able to go on the other side, or if it's on the corner, I can drive around the corner. And then the Google Earth Pro, you can come down real close. I mean, between the street view and everything, you ought to be able to determine what kind of roofing material it is. Is it a laminated? Is it 3-tab? Is it, if it's metal, if it's tile, and if it's tile, you can probably even see if it's clay or concrete tile. Are there mansards? Here's a big one: is it 2-story or more? How steep does it look? So what kind of ladder are you going to need, to be there? Are you going to just show up with a regular 2-story ladder, or regular 1-story ladder, and you're going to try to do a pull up? That's not ideal at all. So a lot can be gleaned from those. You could see the siding material, and then maybe that can tell you whether or not you think, and then based on all the other data you got, are they a serious player? Should I go ahead and pull an Eagle View? I think, again, going to the sales thing, and from a presentation standpoint, many of you already know that the Eagle View is a heck of a presentation tool. Hey, here I am, I'm ready, and oh, by the way, I have an Eagle View report already pulled. Have you ever seen this before? This is what the insurance companies use, and it's what we use too. They use the pricing software called Xactimate, and that's what we use too. So, and look at this here, pictures of your property from an airplane, and look how it breaks down. So before I even came out, I already knew really all the measurements of your roof. I knew how steep it was. That's why I brought my cougar paws so that I could climb properly. I brought the right kind of ladder because I already knew what I was getting into. So that just subconsciously, paints the picture for the client that you're diligent, that you're thorough, that you're prepared. So from a subconscious level, if you're like that, on all those steps, then more than likely that's the same way that it's going to be like when they're dealing with you throughout the build and throughout the more hard and complicated, more uncomfortable and unfriendly parts of the project. And if they've been through any of that before, and if they've been with any other kind of contractor, and you're that thorough and diligent, I don't know what you're doing right now and how you're running your business and all the steps that you're taking. You may be taking 20 more steps, and that's why I think it's really cool that we have the Facebook secret group, because I'm hoping that a lot of you can teach me, and give me extra things to do. That's how I stay sharp and relevant, is to learn new things. And I want you to bring stuff to the table that's above and beyond some of the things that I'm doing in certain areas. And I think it'd be awesome to have a team collaborative effort, from a bunch of mastermind type session, from people who are winning and losing, right? And learn from that. But I just think that I don't know how you're doing things, but I think that the majority, I really do believe that the majority of the folks who are watching this right now, they're not going anywhere near the extent of pre-qualifying clients and investigating the available data before ever even going out to the property. And I think you'll agree with me that if you take those steps, as compared to not taking those steps, you're going into that project, into that prospects, that client meeting with a lot more power than you would if you didn't. So along those same lines of preparation, in the next segment, we'll get into making sure you have the proper damage assessment tools so that you're even more prepared before going out. And I'm excited about that. Let's get into it.